everyone, it's Angela Allen from the Handmade Homestead. Let's talk about the top 12 trends that I see coming up for urban and micro homesteaders for 2025. Let's go. I see an increase in food growing over growing flowers and plants. Even in your front garden, your side garden, you're going to see more and more flower beds being converted over to food growing or having foodstuffs incorporated into the garden space with them. Food has become expensive. Shortages are apparent on shelving. There are a lot of foodborne illnesses, more and more all the time, even in organic fruits and vegetables that are still coming up with pesticide, insecticide, herbicide residues on them. People are getting nervous about what they're buying and they want to grow their own. So I would look for that. I think that's up and coming. I think that's an important thing. And I think that's a good thing for all of us. You can grow food for yourselves. You can urban homestead, you can micro homestead. Even if you have nothing more than a closet and a grow light, you can grow food for yourself. And we're going to keep championing that for everybody out there that wants to try growing something. Even if it's a few herbs for yourself, you can do this. Windowsill, grow light, get growing, join the trend. Number 2 is growing indoors. There's a lot more available for hydroponic growing, grow light growing, windowsill growing, more and more information, more and more books out, more and more supplies available. Absolutely, everybody can grow something. And I think number 2 is you're going to see more and more people growing food indoors over just plants and, flowering plants. So that's a good one too. Next bunch of them has a lot to do with how you grow your food. So number 3, food forests are becoming more and more popular. The ability to grow food all together without stringent plantings, being able to plant your upper canopy of trees, your middle canopy of bushes, your lower canopy of other fruits and vegetables, medium height stuff, and then your lower ground cover like fruits and vegetables too. And you can get a lot in a smaller space with a food forest. It does take some research and learning on everybody's part to make sure you're not overshading out your plants or, what plants need more or less water, that kind of thing. But food forests are economical, they're beautiful, they're certainly abundant. And that's something that if you have a little bit of land outside around your house, try it. Learn about it, give it a try. Let me know how that goes for you, because I don't have that capacity right now, but I certainly would like to someday. Number 4, lazy gardening. That gardening where you clean up the land enough to do some planting and then you don't worry too much about the weeds. You just let nature be nature, and you understand that nature grows pretty chaotically, and you just you plant and you harvest and you don't worry too much about the aesthetics of your garden. Lazy garden isn't for everybody, but lazy gardening is better than no gardening at all. So that's number 4. And that brings us to number 5, which kind of goes along with this. Number 5 is chaos gardening. It's a matter of taking your seeds and just scattering them in the areas that you want them to maybe come up. It's a good way for people to do things like carrots and beets, and any empty spots in your garden, any place where you want a companion plant, any place where you've just got some open ground and you want to put something there, you just broadcast the seeds. Some people cover them with dirt, some people don't even do that. Throw a little water in or not, totally up to you. You see what comes up, you enjoy what you get, and you don't worry about what you don't get. Chaos gardening is easy. People don't even weed often with chaos gardening. It can be a lot of fun to see. It's kind of a surprise what comes up. That's something you could certainly try too. It's becoming very, very popular. Number 6 is multiple kinds of gardening. You may have urban homesteading In your backyard, you may have micro homesteading up on your deck, and in your house, you may have a few acres that you rent or borrow from a family or a loved one that you also homestead on. Multiple kinds of homesteading are becoming very popular as people, grow their kitchen garden up close to their house, have a quarter-acre garden back in their back 40, have herbs and hydroponics going in their basement. There are lots of kinds of garden, and people are combining those kinds of gardening together to get more bang for their efforts. Number 7, abolishing your front and side yards. More and more people are urban gardening and micro gardening in their front yard. So maybe you don't have a big front yard. Maybe you just have a little side of your walkway where you can grow a few items, and you're going to micro homestead there. Or maybe you just rip out your whole lawn and you put in raised beds or partial raised beds and a couple of fruit trees. Gardening in the front yard and gardening in your side yards, getting rid of your lawn altogether, is becoming more and more popular as people in the suburbs or in the cities look to be able to produce some of their own healthy, nutritious, especially organic, or as organic as you can be, food in your plot of land. So, getting rid of lawns, number 7. Number 8 is doubling your harvest by doubling your plantings. So underneath your tomato plants, you may plant a row of basil. In front of them, you might plant a row of green beans. By the time the tomato plants get tall enough for the green beans to be a problem, those will be harvested and pulled out, and so will your basil. Or you can leave lettuce plants in between your tomato plants. The tomatoes will provide shade and help keep them from bolting, and you'll get a longer harvest. So doubling your harvest by doubling your planting in your beds, and by keeping plant starts at the ready all the time. So when one harvest comes out, one set of plants are spent, you can quickly put plants right back in there without having to start from seed, and you've got a leg up on your next harvest. So doubling your harvest from the size of garden that you have. You get twice as much food, same amount of land. Give that one a try. Closer planting. We all know that the seed packets give us an amount of spacing, 18 inches for a pepper plant, for example, between plants. But a lot of people, myself included, plant 2 pepper plants in the same hole. They hold each other up. Doesn't seem to damage how much of a harvest I get, and I get twice as many plants in. The measurements on the packet are made for planting in a field for monoculture industrial planting. You don't have to plant that way at home. You can plant them closer. In our garden, our big garden, we have 5 fruit trees. They are about 5 feet apart. And these are full-size fruit trees, by the way. They are not dwarfs. I keep them pruned to about 7 or 6 feet. I try not to let them get above that. They do fruit. We do get fruit off of them. They're doing extremely well. Now, are you going to have a huge productive fruit tree in that small space, 5-6 feet apart? No, you're not. Especially if you put 3 in one hole. You're not. But does a family of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 need hundreds of peaches or hundreds of apples? Probably not. I have 5 fruit trees. 1 is a pear tree with 4 kinds of pears grafted on it. 2 are apple trees that both have 2 kinds of apples. And then I have a couple of peach trees that are both doing brilliantly. And they are single fruit peach trees. But if I get 50 peaches off of 1 fruit tree and 50 off the other, that is more than enough for my small family. And that includes putting some away, dehydrating some, canning jam and jelly and peach topping and diced peaches and peach filling for pies. I don't need hundreds of fruit. So I would rather have more variety and a manageable amount of fruit. And that works for me, doing that in a small area. Pushing the seasons. I think that you're going to see even more of that in 2025, where people are planting varieties that will overwinter and start growing or coming up again in the spring. And the way that you plant garlic in the fall and harvest it the following July, you can do that with other vegetables especially too. Some fruit, but vegetables for sure. Things like purple sprouting broccoli, you plant in late August, you harvest it the following March. It goes right through the winter out in your garden. And there are a lot of things like that. I have Swiss chard, kale, and green onions that are in my garden that I fully expect to be eating next spring. And they will come up earlier and they will come up stronger for having spent the winter out there. I've also got, like I said, quite a bit of kale and Swiss chard that's still going out there too. So planting to push the seasons, more winter sowing, starting it right now, even in the middle of winter, and sticking it out there in the garden in jugs to get your plants going. Those plants come up early, they come up hardy, you transplant them out into your garden. You're going before anybody else has even bought their seed packets. So pushing the season to get more produce from your garden is going to be something you're going to see more and more and more of, especially since prices in the grocery store don't seem to be coming down at all. Number 11 is grafting not just fruit trees, but vegetable plants too. It's not uncommon to see even newbies learning how to graft. It's easier to get the supplies. It's not difficult to do. People are grafting to start new fruit trees. They are grafting to have multiple fruits on one tree. People are grafting things like peppers and other vegetables too that have a strong single stem, where when they're young, you can graft 2 or 3 kinds of peppers onto one plant, or buying varieties of vegetables or fruits that have multiple kinds of fruit or vegetables on them. Like I said, I have a pear tree that has 4 kinds of pears. I have 2 different apple trees. One has a Spartan and a Cortland apple. The other one is a Cortland and a Macintosh apple. Guess what kind of apple I like to cook with? Yup, Cortlands. So those are really great ways to get a lot more variety into your diet in the same small amount of space. You're caring for one tree and getting 2 kinds of apples. My pear tree, again, 4 kinds of pears on one pear tree. It's very, very healthy. Grafting. It's easy to learn. It can be a lot of fun. Give it a try. See what you think. Let me know if you try how grafting goes for you. I'd like to hear that. I haven't done much of that yet, but I'm not unwilling. What I think you're going to see in the gardening community, especially urban and micro homesteading, is more and more seed saving and seed sharing. It's easy to get heirloom seeds. There are a lot of wonderful, wonderful companies out there. Some of the seeds can be quite expensive. Sometimes when you have a small garden, you don't need a whole pack of seeds. You need 3 or 4. If you're going to grow loofah, you really only need 3 or 4 seeds, unless you have a huge trellis for those plants, because the plants are so big. The same thing with Kakuza squash. 1 or 2 seeds is probably all you need if you have a family of 4 or 5 or 6, because the plants can grow feet a day. It's crazy. Once you plant one of those, you can get 30, 40, 50 foot long vines, and then they start flowering, and then they start putting on more fruit than you will ever use. So you don't need necessarily a pack of 20 seeds. So sharing those with your friends, your family, joining in and participating in local seed banks. I know my local library here has a seed bank, but doing seed swaps with friends, sending seeds, seed swap groups online. There's a lot of seed swapping. If you're going to participate in that, just make sure the seeds that you're swapping for and the seeds you're swapping to others are heirloom varieties. They must say that on them, or what's going to happen is you're not going to get the fruit or the vegetable that's true to what you expect it to be. So that, and some plant sharing. Sometimes people do share plants. Every year when I trim back my blackberry bushes, I have a lot of plants to share. I have a local Buy Nothing group here in my town. It's a town-wide group on Facebook that you can access if you're a member, if you live in the town, and you can give stuff away for free to your people in your community. And that's what I do with the extra plant starts. If I have too many tomato plants started, if I have too many broccoli plants started, and I've planted all I need in my garden, and I always have extra tomato starts, I give them away to other people to help other people grow in their own yards. So seed starts, plant starts, seed starting, seed exchanges, being a part of that, I see that becoming more and more and more popular. So there you go. That's my 12 trends to look for in 2025 in the urban and micro homesteading community. And I will see you next time. Take care.